Me by Fred Schroeder. Episode 3. Our Family. Dad was 33 when they married, and Mom was 25. I guess Dad had saved up some money from his job at Powers Furniture because they immediately bought the house at 37th and Hancock and paid cash. The Grant Park subdivision was a new development at that time. Dad right away hand dug a larger basement and added a garage because they had a car almost from the start. Times were pretty good. Brother Bob was born in 1923 and sister Bernice was born in 1925. I came along in July 1929, just before the stock market crashed in October. At some time before this, Dad quit Powers Furniture and went to work for Portland Gas and Coke, selling gas appliances, and did very well as a salesman. He won a trip to California to compete in a public speaking contest and took the family, except for me, because I was too small. I stayed with Grandma Witchy while they were gone and started a close relationship with her, which lasted until she died. In 1931, business had fallen off due to the Depression, and Dad took a risk by going to work for his sister company, Montana Power Company. We stayed in Montana for a year while he tried to drum up gas appliance business among skeptical people. We lived in Livingston, Deer Lodge, and Anaconda during that year, but there was nothing happening in the gas and appliance business, so we had to come home to Portland. Fortunately, my parents still owned the house, so they had to let the renters go and move back in. I think we had to stay with Grandma Witchy for a while waiting for the renters to move out, and sometime during that time, my father and grandmother had a falling out, which lasted most of their lives. The Depression lasted 5 years for us, and it was very difficult, although not as difficult as for those who didn't own a house. My father got odd jobs working in a cheese factory, a truck manufacturer, threshing, etc., but his lack of education and training for manufacturing work made it difficult to hold a job. His friends who still had jobs helped us out with work whenever they could. He was a very proud man, very inventive and hardworking. Somehow during this time, he studied on his own and got a sort of high school equivalency, which helped him get a civil service exam that qualified him for a job at the Multnomah County Courthouse as a tax clerk. He went to work steady there in 1936 and continued until he retired a few months before he died of a massive heart attack at age 69. The Depression took a toll on Dad, as the brush salesman who could sell anything had to contend with the embarrassment of being out of work. He had a lot of company there, and then to be content with being a clerk. I think it affected his whole life and personality. He retired with big plans to travel, but died a few months later. Maybe that's why I can relate so closely with Death of a Salesman whenever I see it. Dad was a very intelligent and inventive person, and it's too bad his lack of education kept him from being able to use that talent for industry. After he increased the size of our basement to have a fuel storage area, he converted to sawdust heat, which was very cheap in Portland at that time. The trucks would dump the sawdust in the driveway, and after a few years of wheelbarrowing the sawdust up the ramp into the basement area, Dad invented his conveyor system with motors, flywheels, belts, and stuff he picked up in junkyards. The conveyor hung from the garage ceiling when not in use, and Dad made it so it could be pulled out further into the driveway as the sawdust pile decreased. Inside the basement was another conveyor, hung from the ceiling, which could be moved to pick up from the big conveyor and transfer to all corners of the sawdust storage area. I describe this in detail because even today, I consider it a work of some mechanical genius. People would stop their cars and watch the operation in some awe. It was his crowning touch, but typical of the things he invented in his life. It is too bad it sometimes takes us so long to appreciate our parents. I still think it is amazing when I think of The Bunch my parents were part of. This was a group of 12 or 13 people who were best friends from the time they were dating until the last one died in their 90s. Mother was next to last and still talked with Elsie Johns until just before she died. There were, besides my parents, the Vodabergs, and sometimes Elsie Vodaberg's unmarried sister, the Johns, the Heidbrinks, the Schmidts, later Butchers when she remarried, and the Landkows. And Bond apparently was some German heritage and some association with the old Trinity Lutheran Church. They celebrated all birthdays and anniversaries together, went on family picnics together, played cards once a month, and were there for each other. And this went on without pause for over 70 years. Mother and Dad were staunch members of Grace Lutheran Church, I think for their entire wedded life, although Dad always retained some of his Christian Science beliefs. It was tough getting him to see a doctor or getting permission for us to see a doctor.